We all know what it feels like. But right now, I want to ask you to remember, what did you feel at that moment? Try to envision yourself in that situation once more, because it happens every day. What did you really feel? Can you remember what you felt? You probably gave him that buck because he looked filthy. You gave him that buck because he's stinky. Because maybe you felt repulsion or pity. These are normal feelings. Or you gave him that buck maybe because you were embarrassed. You just gave him the buck to get rid of him in the end. We've all been there. We all know what it feels like, right? But today, I want to ask everyone to reflect on the role we play in our society, on how willing you would be to get involved in helping people like this in our community. I want to ask you to consider how much of a change you could make in someone else's life. Considering the words that Jesse Jackson once said about 20 years ago when he was trying to inspire his people to make a difference in their community. He said, "All of us here tonight, we are seated. We think we are seated, but really we are standing on someone else's shoulders." The other day, when I was on the bus, I was talking with a student, and as we were talking, she was telling me of how happy she was because her complaint and her coworker's complaint to the property owner of the beanery, they work at the beanery, had finally worked. Because they had recently terminated the contract they had with the building next door. They had finally achieved it. Turns out, their next door neighbors were a non-profit organization dedicated to help the homeless and the needy. And because they were bringing in nasty-looking people around the beanery, this is why they closed them out. They were upset because of how it was making them look bad, how it was upsetting their business. And she did use many upsetting examples to everyone who was listening around her that would actually convince them that the homeless people were in their way, and they could identify with how disruptive it is to our daily striving to better ourselves, to see these people who do nothing, who aren't good for anything, who represent the worst of our society. She ended her conversation by saying she just wanted to get rid of them, of those people. These people? Those people? Is that how we refer to another human being? As those people? Me on one side and they on the other side? Is that how we would like to be referred to? They're all American citizens, just like us. Most of them are war veterans. They fought for our country. My grandfather is a war veteran. Do you have someone who has gone to war? How would you feel if your grandfather was called these people? The homeless aren't dirty and smelly because they don't care to bathe. They are dirty because they don't have someone who cares at all. They aren't poor and hungry because they like it that way. They're desperate because they're lonely. They're treated like trash. They're cast aside. They're abandoned. They are in pain. They carry a burden we don't even know of. They carry the burden that has given us the comforts we are enjoying right now. Those veterans, they paid the price. They served our country. This is how we repay them, by letting them suffer at our doorsteps, by pushing them aside each time we can to try and get rid of them. There's a homeless man my husband and I once helped. We invited him home for dinner. We sat and ate with him. And in the middle of our dinner, guess what he pops out of his backpack? 3 gold medals. He was an Olympic champion. This old, drunky, crazy man turned out to be a world champion. That day we gave him a bike so he could get to the Stone Soup. The Stone Soup is a meal site we have in town where people can go and eat for free. And at least he now had a way to get there every day. So what if it were someone you knew, just like him, who was using drugs and alcohol to soothe his daily suffering of being cast aside, just to spare his life? Anyone could be him. Who's going to give them a second chance? Who's going to console them? Who's going to lift them after falling so low? Who's going to put back together the broken pieces of their lives, the family they once had? Who? I'll tell you who. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who can. We are the ones who have the power. We can make a difference in someone else's life. You may ask me, who has the time? Who has the means? I'll tell you who. We have the means. We have the time. We have the youth. We have energy. We have resources. We have knowledge. We have our parents' support. We can. We can. All it takes really is getting involved. All it takes is taking a little time, taking the care, taking the responsibility to make that difference in someone else's life, to do something about it. We are who can give them a second chance. We are who can put back the pieces of their life, and put them back on their feet again. It is our town we're going to be lifting in the end, right? It's our community we're going to be healing. It is our children's future we're going to be forming by doing this. We're doing this for our own selves. Because it turns out those people are our people. Those people are our family. We all have a loved one who's gone off to war, right? We all have a loved one who has fallen into drugs. We all have a loved one who's had a teen pregnancy, who has tripped, who has failed. There are people. There are families. And so who's going to take responsibility for our people, taking them off the street, building structures that would prevent them from falling again? It is our duty. Taking action to fix the social problems, the future of our society lies in our hands, not of someone else. It's our duty. Believe me, we don't want this attitude of indifference to continue. Why? Because it is our very brother who is coming back from war and will be the next veteran. He will be the next one who's traumatized by the sight of war and death. It can be our best friend. The next person has a car accident and is left crippled and on the street. Or our very own son who falls into the hands of drugs. Or it could very well be you, or me. It is, as Jesse Jackson once said, everyone here, we think we are seated, but really, we are standing on someone else's shoulders. And so, now I'm going to give you a sheet of all the resources that are available, the service centers that are out there to help people in need. These are places we can easily visit or talk with someone so we can volunteer our time or just spend some time with lonely people. These are places where we can make a difference.